So welcome back to my channel, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Today I'm going to talk about the arrowhead. Now this is my arrowhead, look at it. Now the thing is that why they call it the arrowhead is because even if you look at the leaves, let's take this one here, it actually does look like an arrowhead. Now the thing about the arrowhead, there's so many different names for it. They call it the African evergreen or the American evergreen. They even call it the goosefoot because somehow the shape of the leaf actually looks like the goosefoot. But it's such a lovely plant because it is one of the most popular plants actually as an indoor plant. Many people do have it. Now there are two ways actually to utilize this plant because it's so versatile. You could either have it as a bushy plant in a container as in this one, but once again because of the arrowhead vine is that it is a climber. And so let's have a look at the plant. My name's Alice and I'm the red soil gardener. Now let's go into the origin of this plant. This plant is actually from Mexico. You get it in the semi-tropical environment, and so we're looking at Mexico and we're looking at South America. It's actually a forest plant, and what happens is, if I could turn around, is that in the forest it actually either grows in soil and just spreads as a ground cover, but as it is a vine, what it does have is that on the side near the nodes you get the formation of aerial roots, and you can actually see it very clearly here. Now as these aerial roots get really long, it actually has a mechanism to attach itself to the trunk of a tree, and that's how it climbs up with the support of its aerial roots. Now again, as I mentioned, is that it is a ground cover, so some of the arrowheads is that you can find them crawling in these lovely tropical forests. I use it for hanging baskets, so I can have the trellis of the vine just falling down. Other people do use the vine is you get one of those moss poles and actually attach this to and have it climbing up and having again that trellis. As I mentioned is that with arrowheads is that the leaves do change. Now if you look at this beautiful arrowhead, as I mentioned before, I think we've talked about this when we were talking about propagated, well, just basically growing plants in water. So this is one of it, but what I could do is, in order, because it is trellising and I still do want to have it in water, so what I'm going to do is actually just snip it here, just there, and because the node is already here, just in this point, is I will basically cut this leaf off and then just simply put it in water, just to make it into a bushier arrangement, and then it'll continue growing, because what I don't want is the vine sort of trellising, because I do put this one in my dining room on a table. Now as I mentioned is that here we have is another one. This is a more mature arrowhead. Now as we know is that the leaves are like that. This is a bit more darker, but what happens is that as it matures it changes, and this is the leaf. So we have 3 fingers on the leaf, but it looks absolutely different from the original arrowhead juvenile baby leaf. You may be asking yourself, why is it I'm growing my arrowhead vine in water? but I have them in my kitchen. I have them along the shelf in water. Now the thing is that for me, because we have so many plants around through propagation, is I've always wanted to have greenery in my kitchen, and I find that when you do grow them in water and place them up above the shelf, you don't have to water. So basically it just takes care of itself, and every week I just go there, change the water, and even drop a bit of fertilizer. So that's why I grow things in water. But then the thing about these arrowheads, as I mentioned, is that you do end up with a trellis like that, and you can do a soil propagation also from this node, which we're not doing it today, but you could start it off in a water propagation so you have it actually displayed, and then later, once you do have rooting, you can transfer it into a pot. Let's look at the light requirement of the arrowhead. Now the thing is that also what I'd like to point out is that this is the variety, the popular variety we have in Kenya, but there are other varieties which actually have pink leaves or variegated leaves. There's so many different varieties, but this is what I have in stock. Now what these beautiful little plants of mine, what they like is that indirect bright light, which I would equate it to medium light. They don't want full sun because the leaves are still very delicate. A lot of people put them in south-facing windows so you don't get that direct light, sun coming and scorching their leaves. For those who have a variegated version, what you need to do is actually give it a bit more light, because basically what has happened is that the white bit of the plant doesn't have the pigmentation, so the plant has to work harder in order to manufacture food. Now what happens is that if it doesn't get enough light, what happens is the plant will actually revert to green. So in order to keep your variegation, do get those plants that are variegated, give it a bit more light. Now let's look at the soil. What I did is try to replicate the rainforest soil, it's sort of a tropical. So here we have is cocoa peat, we have compost in there, a bit of soil, and basically it's a well-draining soil. So once you do replicate the soil mixture you will get in a semi-tropical forest, it's ideal for your arrowhead. Now basically what I do with my arrowheads is that I just make the soil moist. I don't let it really dry out because somehow I just feel that it is comfortable the way it is at the moment. But if it does dry out, what I would actually do is I do a really deep watering. So I would take it and really pour the water and let it drain through so that you know that you've got into every area of your pot, and then I'd leave it like that. But if you let it dry out, you will get browning on the leaves, which I don't have here, but you would get that. And if you do overwater, you would get root rot. And again, the finger test is always the best method to use to understand if your plant is thirsty. Now, what I would do is that during spring and summer, during the warm months, is just make sure that your arrowhead soil is moist. But as you're going into fall and winter, you just keep reducing it, the watering. The other thing that actually this plant appreciates is a bit of humidity. Again, grouping your plants all together so that you get that transpiration and you create a sort of humid atmosphere does work. Or you do the pebbles underneath the pot so that you get all that sort of transpiration happening and you get the humidity forming. These are sort of different methods that you can use in order to make sure if it's very hot and dry that your plant still gets a bit of humidity. And also misting is not bad, just spray it occasionally. What happens in a plant like this, as you see, I'm going to just pull it here, is this is my beautiful plant. But what I've noticed again is some of these, you know, I'm not getting a structure out of it because this one seems to want to go as a climber, and maybe I don't want it to be a climber. So what I would actually do is just keep checking, and I would prune it, because by pruning it, you're going to make it bushier. So I am going to just simply remove this one from here. By snipping it, I'm going to actually get it to be a bit bushier. I'm actually going to leave this here and just control it, because in the end, if these can grow quite bushy, I may be able to have a much bigger plant. But also I need to go in here and just remove some of these leaves, because what it is with the arrowhead is that once you do get a really, I mean, if it's, you get a lot of leaves in here, is you could end up having spider mites, mealybugs, you could end up having aphids living in the plant. So I would like to actually remove the plant, some of these leaves, so at least the plant can breathe, and then you don't give an opportunity for some of these pests to actually go in there. So I'm just going to go in here and remove some of these, just there, remove that one. And just remove here, and just to make it less bushy, because having it too bushy inside is it retains the humidity and encourages these pests to go and live in there. Now here we have my lovely little arrowhead vine, and I'm going to try to control it because I want it more rounded. Now here, with the ones I've propagated in water, is I'm actually going to see if I could actually put it on a pole, moss pole, and see how it will trellis, and I have it somewhere where everyone can see it. But that we will follow on Instagram. So thank you so much, fellow gardeners. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Do go and get yourself an arrowhead. They're so easy to actually look after, and they are very faithful plants. Once you do have it, you decide whether you want it as a climber or do you want it as a bushy plant, and then also introduce it in your garden and just see how it works. So thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, and press that notification. And don't forget to subscribe, because it does mean a lot to us. And follow us on Instagram. We always have tips. We update beautiful plants that I have in the garden. And also spread the word to your friends about the Red Soil Gardener. So have a lovely day, and do grow your arrowheads.